Imagiverse Studios presents Tales from the Horrorweb, an audio-only series based on the short stories by Gavin Pryor. Tonight's story is called Apartment 13. Moving into a new home, their apartment isn't always what it has appeared to be. A new life was about to begin. Janice and her girlfriend, Stacy, were moving into an apartment they had rented for a while until they could afford a house. They were still taking a few online college courses in digital art and graphic design, but soon, in the coming months, they will finish their courses and graduate. They have showcased their artworks on social media, and a lot of people like them. They soon became viral and started their own website, which they made together, so they could showcase their art and sell merchandise. When they arrived at the apartment building, they parked their car and got off. They arrived inside the lobby to meet up with Kendra, the owner. "Hi, you must be Janice and Stacy, the artists I have spoken to on the phone," said Kendra. "Sorry if we were a bit late," Janice said. "We had a rough start this morning." Stacy said, "We had a little bit of a traffic jam just 25 minutes ago, and we got a little bored, so she decided to put on her playlist from her phone and play it on the car speaker. It sometimes happens to some people when things don't always go as planned," said Kendra. "Anyway, let me show you around this apartment you will be staying at." She handed Stacy the keys, which are attached to a keychain. It was blue with silver numbers that read 13. Janice and Stacy followed Kendra down the hallway until they arrived at a door. Next to it was a sign with the same number as the keychain. Stacy used the keys to unlock the door to the apartment. They walked inside to see the living room. It was clean, like every other apartment, before they moved in. It had white walls, a polished wooden floor, a gray rug, a wooden coffee table, a blue couch, a 4K TV on a wooden shelf, 2 closets, and a clock mounted on the wall. The bedroom had a king-sized bed, a wooden desk, a small TV, a lamp, a blue rug, a closet with 2 sliding doors, and a window showing a view of the town. The next room they went to was the kitchen. It has a microwave, an oven with a built-in stove, a refrigerator, cabinets, and a sink. The bathroom has white tile floors and black walls. It has a white sink with a mirror, a cabinet full of cleaning supplies, a tub with a shower, and a white toilet. Janice and Stacy walked back to the living room. "There is one more room I've been meaning to show you, but I ran out of time since I have to arrive at a conference in about 4 minutes. It's an online meeting I need to attend in my office," said Kendra. "Where could we find this room?" Stacy asked. "Just walk over to the 2 brown doors next to the circular table," said Kendra. "Don't forget that rent is due on the 2nd of each month. Enjoy your home." Kendra walked out of the door while Janice and Stacy walked over to the 2 brown doors. Kendra walked out of the door while Janice and Stacy walked over to the 2 brown doors and opened them. The room had 2 windows, each with white window blinds. The walls were painted green and the ceiling was painted brown. The floor had black and white checkered tiles. There was also a bookshelf, a desk with a green lamp, a gray rotating chair, a ceiling fan, and a blue rug under the desk. "That was the final room she was going to show us?" said Stacy. "This is perfect for when I want to get my work done on my projects," said Janice. "Overall, I think distractions won't be a problem. It's a total game changer for us," said Stacy. "Moving into a new apartment was a great move for all of us. Now we don't need to deal with some of the stuff we had to deal with every night. Janice said, "We used to hear noises coming from my neighbors. They usually throw parties like wild animals. One time, the cops had to show up at their house and shut them down." Stacy said, "I can't be working with all of the pets intruding on me in the living room. They would usually ask for food or to go outside." Janice said, "I probably would ask for a pet lizard." Stacy said, "All that aside, this room looks like an office that I usually see in a mystery movie." "Or a study room you would find in a mansion," said Janice. "I didn't have one at the house I used to live in. All we need to make this room complete is a second desk." Stacy noticed another wooden door next to the bookshelf. She walked in and opened it to find that it was a closet. Inside were a black foldable desk and a rotating chair. She smiled as Janice walked over to her and looked at the stuff inside the closet. "I guess I won't be ordering one online since it's already in there," said Janice. "Now it's our office room." A few hours later, Janice and Stacy were in bed, sleeping for the night. Stacy woke up to the sound of the TV turning on by itself. She got up and walked over to the living room. The TV was displaying static. She tried to find the remote for the TV to turn it off. She found it near the lamp, next to the light switch. She aimed the remote at the TV and pressed the power button to turn it off. She wonders who might be turning it on as she walks back to bed. While she was sleeping, the remote started to levitate as if someone invisible had picked it up. It went up in midair and floated to the coffee table. It flew to the couch and landed on the cushion. In the office room, the doors were opened by themselves. The next day, they woke up to find a piece of paper on the desk. There seemed to be writing on it that said, "November 12th, 1955, 5:18 p.m. Janice said, "I don't know who wrote this. I think this was left on the bookshelf before we moved in." Stacy replied, "That wouldn't be possible. We never saw a piece of paper fly over to the desk. And who left the TV remote on the couch?" Janice walked over to the couch and picked it up. She showed it to Stacy the moment she came into the office room. Stacy said, "The TV, for some reason, came on by itself last night, so I had to turn it off. It could be interference from a universal remote," said Janice. "It was on static the last time I checked," said Stacy. "I think the cable went out." Janice aimed the remote at the TV and turned it on. The TV was tuned into a local news channel. Janice said, "Just got fixed today." Stacy said, "Or the channel signed off for the night." "That too," said Janice. "Should we ask someone who knows about this?" Stacy said, "If it involves someone breaking into our apartment and pulling a joke, then we should wait until it's verified that it is possible." Janice asked, "You want me to set up cameras so we could catch the person doing this?" "We can't afford some Wi-Fi cameras, but I do have this one camera to connect to my phone," said Stacy. Stacy went back to her room and opened her backpack to take her camera out. She walked back to Janice and showed it to her. Janice said, "All right, but if we find out that no one is behind all of this, then we should ask for information regarding the apartment." When they were about to walk back to their room, they heard a knock at the front door. Janice walked over and opened the door. Standing near the doorway was their new neighbor. "Hello," said Jasmine. "Are you new here?" "We just moved in yesterday," replied Janice. "I'm Jasmine," she said. "My name is Janice. I live here with Stacy," said Janice. "Roommates?" asked Jasmine. "We're actually together," said Janice. I was thinking we would be able to stay here to work on a few projects until we could afford a place to live. This apartment should be the start of it." "Interesting," Jasmine said. "May I come in? I have some welcome baskets to give." Jasmine held out 2 baskets in each of her hands. They were filled with so much stuff that was wrapped in blue wrapping paper. She brought it over to their room and placed it on the nightstand. Stacy was just reading a book in her chair when she looked at the welcome baskets that Janice brought in. "Who gave these to you?" said Stacy. "These were given to me by our neighbor. Her name is Jasmine," said Janice. "Is she nice?" asked Stacy. "She is very kind," said Janice. "You want to meet her?" Stacy said, "I'll be right out of my room in about a few minutes." As a few minutes passed, Stacy and Janice were in the living room with Jasmine. They were having a conversation while the TV was broadcasting a 90s sitcom. "It was just around the holiday season," said Stacy. "Me and Janice went down to the art museum to see if we could get our art project displayed in one of their exhibits. It was a digital painting we created together, basically a house in the middle of the ocean with a boat parked near its deck. It stood on the boardwalk. At first, they declined, but then someone had a look and said that it was a masterpiece. After what felt like forever, we got paid for showcasing our masterpiece." Jasmine said, "I believe I've seen this before when I stopped by." "Did you two really make this?" "Yes," replied Stacy. "It only took us a few days to work on it." "I thought it only took us a few weeks to accomplish this," said Janice. "Well, sometimes you just can't rush art," said Jasmine. "It takes time, depending on the project." Janice said, "You know how many people have seen our artwork? We got 1 million people. And we do this thing where people pay us to do some artwork." "Commissions?" said Jasmine. "I've heard of those. People do them on the internet most of the time." Their conversation was interrupted when the lights turned off. The TV turned to static. "Did the power box get fried again?" Jasmine asked. The door to the office room opened. A book slid down on the floor and stopped on the couch. It was lifted into the air and landed on Janice's lap. It opened, flipping the pages until it stopped at the 66th page. On the page was a picture of the same office room. Next to the desk was a man who was wearing a black jacket, a white button-up shirt, a red bow tie, black pants, and black shoes. He is looking at the camera, smiling, and holding a book in his right hand. Stacy grabbed the book and looked at the picture. She was stunned to see this man. "They don't know who he is." There was a caption on the bottom of the picture that shows the same date that was written on a piece of paper. The book suddenly flew out of Janice's hands and landed on the floor. A loud noise came from their room. It sounded like the walls were being scratched. Stacy ran to the room to see a woman who was wearing a green dress and black shoes. Her head was on the pillow, lying on the floor. The lights turned back on, and the 90s sitcom came back on the television. The woman who was on the floor vanished. Stacy didn't know what was happening. On the wall was another piece of paper. Written on it was another date, May 23rd, 1954, 7:35 p.m. Janice and Jasmine ran to the room to see Stacy stare at it. "Did an animal break into your apartment or something?" asked Jasmine. "This is no animal," said Janice. "It could be something strange going on. I've seen this happen the first time I moved into the apartment complex, and I still can't figure out what might be happening," said Jasmine. After a bit of thought, they decided to ask Kendra for some answers. A few minutes later, They walked over to Kendra's office. Kendra sat down with a picture that was similar to what they had seen in the book. She brought out another photo of the same woman who was wearing the green dress and black shoes from earlier. I haven't explained about this for some time, but I think it's important that you know about this. Kendra slid the photos to Stacy and Janice. Apartment 13 was home to some strange paranormal activity, said Kendra. The last two people who owned this place were Alice and Marvin. Marvin was a novelist. He has written over 165 novels. The office room you supposedly used to work on your projects used to be his. Alice, his wife, helped him out with ideas. One day, she died from a mysterious illness. The doctor was unable to come up with a diagnosis. Marvin stopped writing novels after his wife's passing. About a year later, Marvin was at his desk, sitting on his chair, not moving. The police thought that the man had gotten the same illness as Alice. So, we're living in a haunted apartment? Stacy asked. I wouldn't say haunted, said Kendra. Every time I pass this apartment, I can hear their voices. I think what might be happening is that they are trapped in the apartment. When this place opened in 1943, the owner lived in the same apartment you moved into. He was good at playing card games with everyone. Every Friday night, he would invite anyone to challenge him. 2 years later, the owner was challenged by another man who turned out to be the devil. He promised the owner a fortune if he could beat him at a card game. He accepted the challenge, only to find out that the game seemed to be as tricky as he thought it would be. When the devil won the game, the owner was cursed. Anyone who had died in this apartment would be forced to live there as a ghost for all of eternity. That's when the owner perished the next day. That explains everything, Stacy said. What about doors opening and stuff being flown away? Said Janice. That would be the other spirits in the house that had resided there for years, said Kendra. I tried to convince the owner to block access to apartment 13, but he didn't believe in anything about it and kept selling it. Occasionally, someone moves out of the apartment after a few weeks, or maybe months. Are there any other apartments we can rent? Janice asked. Sorry, said Kendra, but I think they may all be taken. Besides, you might be stuck in this apartment for a little while. Until we move out, said Stacy. Well, I am not saying you should, said Kendra. But what I can tell you is that this curse hasn't been broken in years. Maybe you might find some way. As the weeks went by, they worked on some art projects and showcased them online. They sold some of them as merchandise on their website. Occasionally, they would hear the voices of Marvin and Alice begging to be let out. Whenever Stacy was working on a few of her own projects in the office, she could swear that many people who had originally lived there appeared and disappeared at random. Some of them were walking to different rooms. Others walked out of the office room. Even some of the ghosts were standing there, motionless. Janice did a bit of research about apartment 13. She found out that the apartment complex was originally an abandoned house in the middle of a village. After it was abandoned, it was turned into a city. The man who once lived in the house was the devil himself. He was evicted after he was blamed for bringing a string of bad luck to the village. After 5 months of living in apartment 13, Jasmine came over for a visit. She took a look at the projects they'd worked on. These masterpieces were like a charm, said Jasmine. Everyone seemed to like them. I've seen their positive comments and critiques as well. Stacy replied, We've seen them too. We have been listening to them and improving our art styles. No destructive criticism so far. Suddenly, they heard a knock on the door. Stacy opened it to find a man. He was wearing a brown jacket with a green sweater, jeans, and brown leather boots. On his right hand was a deck of cards. "Good evening," Roy said. "May I challenge either of you three to a game of cards?" Jasmine stood in silence as she watched the man walk inside with a sinister smile. Stacy looked at Jasmine and walked over to her. "What's wrong, Jasmine?" said Stacy. "I think that's the devil Kendra was talking about," said Jasmine. "No," said Roy. "That's not true. I wanted to see if anyone would beat me in a game of cards. The winner will receive a greater fortune. Anyone want to play?" "I'll do it," said Jasmine. "I have played poker before, and I want to inform you that I am skilled. So if there is any way that I lose, I am moving out of this apartment." Roy said, "It's not that game. It's a different one from that. How about a simple game of war? It's a card game that you might be familiar with. Besides, I already played poker with someone else years ago." "I'll accept your challenge," said Jasmine. "If anything goes wrong, I'll be able to assist you if needed." Janice said. "It's okay," Roy said. "I want this game to be fair and square. We really don't want any form of cheating now, would we?" Jasmine and Roy sat down at the table and began their game. "Jasmine," said Roy, "would you like to go first? It's only a 10-minute game. All you need is a bit of luck to win. But if you lose, you don't want to know what's going to happen to you." When the card game began, it was a race against time between Roy and Jasmine. "You think that's the devil?" said Jasmine. "Now that you mention it, that could be," said Stacy. "We need to keep hoping that Jasmine wins this one. It might be a sign that the curse could be lifted." Kendra ran into the apartment when she passed by. Kendra said, "I noticed the door is open, and I think I know what it is." "What?" said Janice. "Let me explain this in full detail," said Kendra. "It's the devil's card games that are making them mysteriously perish." "Is Jasmine playing them right now?" "She is," said Stacy. "And I'm telling you, things don't look too good." Kendra said, "We've got to keep our hopes up for Jasmine. It might be a sign that the curse can be broken if someone wins. No one has done that in years." As the game went on, Janice, Kendra, and Stacy were watching Jasmine try to beat the devil. So far, she was doing great, but the devil seemed to be nearing his victory. 10 minutes had passed, and Jasmine and the devil were down to their last card. "All right," said Roy. "This is one more chance you have to take before you win." "It will be the last card game you will ever play, Roy," said Kendra. "Don't test me, Kendra," said Roy. Kendra was shocked to see Roy snap at her like that. "That's right," said Roy. "I usually win these games. I've done that to Marvin and Alice. Every few years, I challenge someone to a card game, and they always end up dead." Roy placed a card on the table. It was the King of Hearts. Kendra said, "This isn't going to end well. I wish apartment 13 was gone." Jasmine knew that the only way to beat him was to draw an ace. Janice, Kendra, and Stacy are about to give up, knowing that they could be the next to live in this apartment for eternity. That's when Jasmine placed her card on the table. Roy's face turned from a smile to a frown. He looked to see that it was the ace of spades. "That's impossible," said Roy. "No one has beat me in any card game before." Jasmine smiled at Roy. "Well, you know what they say," Jasmine said. "When a streak is lost, a new champion will rise." Suddenly, The apartment began to shake. Millions of spirits were flying out of the window as Roy disintegrated into nothingness. A flash of lights went off like fireworks until they saw nothing but darkness. Stacy and Janice woke up in their car. They looked out the window to see that it was morning. Looking through the window was Kendra. "Thank goodness you're awake, you two," said Kendra. "Some people were worried about you." They looked to see a crowd of people gathering around their car. Stacy and Janice were utterly speechless. "I know, you seemed to fall asleep when you got there," said Kendra. "Did you doze off in the evening?" "Apartment 13?" said Stacy. Kendra looked very puzzled. "We don't have apartment 13, said Kendra. Stacy and Janice ran out of the car into the apartment building. When they got to the floor where apartment 13 was, they found out that the door was gone. All there was a blank wall with a painting of a flower that was hung on a picture frame. Kendra walked over to them. "Sorry if you believe that this was the apartment you are planning to stay at, but I can show you a different apartment you will be renting," said Kendra. They followed Kendra to the top floor. The apartment number they were staying at was 23. "Shouldn't be too bad for you two," said Kendra. They looked around to see that the apartment looked like the same one as apartment 13, except there were no ghosts around. When they got to the bedroom, they found a briefcase sitting on the nightstand. Stacy opened it to find stacks of cash. It turns out that after the devil lost the bet, apartment 13 vanished, and they were taken back to when they first came to the apartment complex. Jasmine was still their neighbor, but they were not expected to be visited by her until tomorrow.